Well, hello there, everybody. It's Grampa Scott, and I'm back today for another story and hopefully a great adventure, too. Today's book is called In Grandpa's Woods. Can you see who that guy is on the front there? Yep, it's Mr. Squirrel. Well, let's get started, shall we? Chad sat on a tree branch. He called to Amy, "Come up." Amy pulled herself onto a branch and sat near Chad. She said, "This tree is easy to climb." Chad grinned. "Climbing trees is the best part of being at Grandpa's and Grandma's." Amy said, "I asked Grandma for a swing. She is going to talk to Grandpa about it." Grandpa called, "Chad, Amy, come down here." Look at that. There's a deer back by the woods. Grandpa said, "Grandma told me you need a place to play when you visit. Would you like to have a tree house?" Amy asked, "Will it have a swing?" Grandpa said, "If you want one." Chad asked, "Can the tree house be in a tall tree? I know a good one." Grandpa said, "Lead us to it." Wow, that sounds fun, doesn't it, guys? Chad stopped in front of a tall tree. "This one would be fun to climb." Grandpa smiled at the tree. "That's one of my sugar maples. The syrup we had for breakfast came from trees like this one." Amy laughed. "That's silly. Trees can't make syrup." Grandpa said, "Trees don't make syrup. I do. In the spring, the tree pulls sap up from its roots, and the sap is sweet. I collect it and boil it into syrup." Chad looked at the tree again. He never thought that a tree could be special, but this one was. He didn't want to climb it. He asked, "Can we find a different tree?" Grandpa said, "That's a good idea," and he led them deeper into the woods. Mr. Squirrel is up there watching them, too. Chad followed Grandpa and Amy. Chad stopped and pointed to flat grass under the tree. "That's a deer bed." Chad blinked. "Deer live here?" He never thought about where deer lived. "Well," Grandpa said, "deer sleep here." Chad looked at the grass. It looked soft enough to sleep on. He wondered what deer looked like when they sleep. Amy asked, "Where does the path go?" "I don't know," Grandpa answered. "It's a deer path." Chad wondered where the deer would go. He asked, "Can we follow it?" Oh, they're finding out all kinds of neat things on this adventure, aren't they? The path led to an open spot in the woods. Flowers bloomed in the grass. Butterflies danced around them. A breeze whispered through the trees. Amy said, "I like it here." Chad did too. He listened to be quiet. Then he heard something. "What's that?" Grandpa said, "Let's find out." Chad hurried towards the noise. It sounded like voices. He wondered what was going on. What animals can you see in the pictures, guys? Geese and a crane and even a fox over on the edge. On the other side of the road, loggers worked with machines. Amy asked, "What are they doing?" Grandpa said, "They're harvesting trees. The wood will be used to build things." Chad asked Grandpa, "Do you cut down trees?" "Sometimes," Grandpa answered. "I'll show you." Grandpa pointed to several stumps. "Look at those large trees. Now, these little trees get more sun." A squirrel jumped onto the stump. It dropped a pine cone and ran off. Amy picked up the pine cone. "If these seeds grow, new trees will start." Grandpa smiled. "That's how we got these trees started." Chad said, But you plant trees too? You showed me some a long time ago." Grandpa said, "Those were my neighbor's trees. Would you like to see them again?" How would you like to see if they grew? I think it did. Amy asked, "Are those Christmas trees?" "No," Grandpa answered. "When they are big, those trees will be used to make paper." Grandpa waved to the people looking at the pine trees. "That's my neighbor Len. He's talking to Chris. She comes out to talk to me next week." "Why?" Chad asked. "Chris is a forester. She'll help me figure out what kind of trees to plant in my field." Chad looked around. He never noticed how many kinds of trees Grandpa had in his woods. Then he remembered something special. "Grandpa, do you still have blueberry bushes?" Oh my, have you ever eaten blueberries? Yum yum. The blueberries were sweet. The juice turned Chad's fingers blue. Amy picked a handful and ate them one by one. Grandpa said, "We'll have to tell Grandma. The berries are ripe. She'll want to make jam." Chad saw a deer path. "Do deer eat berries?" "Yes," Grandpa answered. "Birds do too." Amy filled her hands with berries. She says, "These are for Grandma." Wow, look at all the berries. Grandma thanked Amy and Chad for the berries. She asked them, "Did you find a place for the treehouse?" Chad blinked. Exploring the woods with Grandpa was so much fun that he forgot about the treehouse. Amy said, "I don't want a treehouse. I want a swing." Grandma looked at Grandpa. She said, "Maybe the kids should have a play set near the house. Then I won't worry about them getting lost in the woods." Chad asked, "Grandpa, if you build a play set, can I still walk in the woods with you?" Grandpa said, "Anytime. I will walk in the woods with you and Amy, and you can come along, okay?" Chad and Amy both said, "Okay." Grandpa drew a plan for the play set. Then he asked, "Who wants to ride to the lumber yard with me?" "Oh, wow, that's probably where they're going to get all the stuff for the play set, don't you think?" "That's right." On the way to the lumber yard, Grandpa drove past bare ground with black trees. Chad asked, "What happened to those trees?" Grandpa said, "A fire killed them." Amy stared at the trees. "How did the fire start?" Grandpa said, "I don't know. Maybe somebody started a campfire or wanted to burn garbage, and the fire got away from them and burned everything it reached." Chad asked, "What happened to the animals?" Grandpa said, "Most of them ran to a safer place." Chad didn't want to look at the burned trees. He closed his eyes and pictured Grandpa's green woods. So they're on their way to the lumber yard. At the lumber yard, Grandpa met his friend Jim. While Grandpa talked to Jim, Chad looked around. He saw big sheets of wood, long 2x4s, and doors. Amy found fancy posts. Chad thought about the trees the loggers cut. He wondered what the logs would become. After Grandpa paid for the wood, he asked, "Should we take the canoe out after supper?" Amy shouted, "Yes!" Chad shouted, "Yes, too!" He knew the lake was in the woods. Very cool. Great place at Grandpa's, isn't it? Chad pointed, "I see fish." Grandpa said the water is clear because the forest helps keep it clean. Chad looked at the forest. He saw the trees and bushes and grass and weeds. The forest looked like Grandpa's woods. He asked Grandpa, "Are your woods a forest?" "Yes," Grandpa answered. "My woods do all the good things a forest does." Amy shouted, "Deer!" A white-tailed deer disappeared into the trees. Grandma said, "Keep watching. You never know what you'll see." Frogs croaked. Quacking filled the air. Ducks flew past and landed on the water. A woodpecker pecked. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. Chad watched and listened. The forest was full of surprises. See the woodpecker up on the tree? Chad and Amy helped Grandpa and Grandma build the playset. When it was done, Amy rode the swing. Chad climbed to the top. A hawk circled high in the sky. A squirrel jumped from a branch and ran into the woods. Chad thought about the deer bed and the deer path. He thought about the trees growing and becoming wood. He thought about the lake and the fish and the birds. He thought about how much fun it was to walk in the woods with Grandpa. Being in the woods was the best part of being at Grandpa and Grandma's. I bet it is. Sounds like they're having a great adventure. Grandpa crossed the lawn on his way to the woods. Chad scrambled to the ground and yelled, "Wait for me!" Amy jumped off the swing and ran with Chad. They caught up with Grandpa, and the three of them walked into the woods for another adventure. Well, isn't that just awesome, guys? Grandpa's stories are all about adventures, and Chad and Amy just had an adventure in Grandpa's woods. But you know, just because the story's done, it's not over, because now's the time to go outside and have some fun, even though this woody story is all done.